Well, thank you for doing this. First
Yeah,
of
thanks
all.
for having me.
Oh yeah. We spoke, I think, for First Man years ago.
Wasn't it like a Discovery Channel event, some weird thing in New
Oh.
York?
I don't even remember at this point. Like time has lost all meaning.
I
Uh
think that's the last time I saw you.
could be. It's I mean you're one of my favorite composers, so I'm always happy to do this. But it's always sort of an event. And I think there's I don't know if this sounds weird or not, but there's not that many composers who seem to only work with one person at the moment.
Mm.
And that used to be, I think, a little bit more of a thing. You
Was
know,
it?
I think with the days of the auteur, I think you also had like, oh, and he would rope in this person to do, and you kind of had this package deal of sometimes it was the DP, the editor, and not everyone obviously knows that kind of stuff. But music, you can't help but notice if it's good, or if it's bad. But it's obviously good here. So I think there's something a little bit old fashioned, not just about the stuff you guys do, but just the pairing and the fact that it's friends going to work together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's why I love working with Damien because he has such specific, he's such a specific filmmaker and he has such a singular vision for his films. Every film is so much its own thing.
Yeah.
And he wants that from the music. He doesn't want generic music. He wants the music, a score that really just belongs to that film and nothing else. So it gives me an opportunity to also, yeah, feel like I think you used the word auteur. I mean, that's a fancy French word that I wouldn't say about myself, but I love when other people use it about me. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like like an artist, and I get to do something very purposeful and very special.
Oh yeah, and obviously there's been times where two of the projects have been very music centric, so you get to sort of like, oh well, music is literally a character here, so that's certainly giving me like some indication of how far I can go with it, and then First Man is its own separate thing of like, okay, we're doing something different, and then Babylon is as literally big and preposterous as you can be. It's got to be exciting. Obviously, I would imagine read these things fairly early on because you know
Yeah,
the dude, but you read this one, and I know he's been working on it for a while, but when it's finally like, yeah, this is going to be the one, like, start thinking about music for this. This has got to be a really fun opportunity to be like, okay, I can channel old Hollywood, but I can kind of do whatever I want because we're turning everything. Like, if it goes to 11, we don't want to go to like 32 on
yep,
everything we're doing here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like you're getting at. Damien wrote a very specific world. He wrote a very specific world for this, so we wanted the music to be its own very specific world. And yeah, we just want like every score to I mean, we talked a lot about the Babylon sound. What is the Babylon sound? We didn't know for a while, and we discovered it through the process. But hopefully, each score, it's like this is the La La Land sound. This is the First Man sound. This is the Babylon sound. That is the goal. So yeah, we just wanted to find a concoction that would match the movie he was writing and was going to direct, but it would also just kind of like hopefully be identifiable. Hopefully the goal, what we aim for is for people to be able to hear the music after seeing the movie, maybe a long time after seeing the movie and know, oh, that's Babylon. That's the Babylon sound.
Oh, 100%. And I think all of the scores have been that way from Whiplash on down. I mean, obviously Guy Madeline on a park bench, but most people I think start with Whiplash, and it's not a super common occurrence anymore for original scores to be something people just put on. Same with songs. It's sort of a novel situation when you go, wait, that thing I heard on the radio, that's a movie song. Like that started
Yeah.
like that used to be everything. That used popular songs used to be movie soundtracks. And then
Yeah.
what won the Oscar was a big star's big song for a big movie. And it's a lot smaller now. So it's a bigger deal when you I think go, oh, I love Babylon, but I really want that score. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you still hear someone tinkering away and listening to La La Land in the background. Like it doesn't happen as often as it used to.
I love it though. I love when I see film scores being, there's a whole world of like concerts now. So many composers are getting their stuff performed as concerts. I love that. I've, fam like especially with orchestral music, I love the tradition of orchestral music. I grew up going to see an orchestra a few times a year. My family would go to the orchestra. So I'd get to see concerts. My sister is a violinist, so she would play in an orchestra. I grew up around orchestral music, and it's great when people want to introduce their kids to like really old repertoire, but it's not happening so much. Like families aren't taking their kids to see Mahler so much anymore. They're taking their kids sometimes to see Frozen or Harry Potter or sometimes La La Land. So it's like to get to be a part of sharing sharing music, sharing orchestral music. Babylon's not orchestral so much. There are a few cues, but like stuff in the past has been for us. But anyway, to get to like be a part of a musical tradition is like really special. I love that, and I love seeing that for other composers, and just to see film music be respected. I feel like there are people, and maybe it was more so in the past, who would kind of turn their nose up at film music. It's like it's classical music is where it was at, and film music is just this. And now like I see a lot of respect for film music in like the concert world, like I said, but also just like on playlists on Spotify. Like that's what people are listening to a lot of the time. And I love it. Like there's such good work. There's always been such good work being done in film, but it's great to see people recognizing the genre.
Oh yeah. When you're figuring out the sound of something, because it literally is starting from scratch. There's nothing. There's literally nothing on day one. Even a lot of the other department heads, there's something on day one, even if it's just aiming on. I have this vision of a set. Like, all right, cool, we got something. We have a picture. You're literally deciding the sound. You're then creating the music. Like it is starting from nothing. As you're figuring it out, how beneficial is it that you guys have a close relationship? Because I'm sure there's stuff that doesn't work at the beginning, and it takes a certain way of conversing to be like, no, your work is great, but that's not the sound of the movie. We're not there yet. I've listened to directors talk about how that's sometimes the hardest thing is to tell these geniuses, like, you're doing something I can never do in a million years, but it's not that I don't like it, but it's not the thing I have in my head.
Yeah. You are starting from nothing, but you're not. You are starting with a little bit, and that's what I have to say why film music works for me. I don't think I would be able to sit down and just write a symphony.
Yeah.
Some people do that. Some film composers do that. I know Danny Elfman is doing that, and John Powell's doing that. Like there are some composers, John Williams, who just sit down and write music, and I respect that so much. I've never been able to do that or been inspired to do that. I need something to aim for. And yes, you don't have any like music to start with. It is a blank slate in that sense, but at least I have a script to aim for. I have a film like in the future, or sometimes to, with scenes you could watch depending on what stage you're at. But you're right. Sonically, you don't really have anything to start with. So it just starts with like a conversation with Damien. It starts with words. Like, what do we want to feel? It's usually emotional words, like with First Man, tragedy was like one of the first words we started with. Tragedy, pain. I think Damien said like pain that travels the cosmos, a cosmic pain. I think cosmic pain was the word he talked with Babylon. It was a lot of we talked about ideas about wild, unhinged, hedonistic, things like that, fun, driving, aggressive. It was words like that. So that started to give me a sense of tempo and pulse, and I would just start building. I would start depending on the cue. I mean, usually with scores, it's melody. We start with melody. And there are a couple of tunes in this score that it had to be the same approach. I had to start with a melody and grow from there. But so much of the music in this was not melody based. It was kind of groove based, because we wanted music that was, like I said, driving, aggressive.
Yeah.
It started with a groove. So I would start with a drum loop or a drum beat or a riff, like a kind of the kind of riff that could be like a rock and roll riff. I would try to come up with a very simple riff and then build a track from there. So yeah, it was more of like a feel, I guess. So with the way so many of these pieces started on Babylon.
Oh yeah, because it's almost punk rock in a way without having that word. Like nobody would understand what that meant at the time. But
Yeah.
you're also, so many of the images that you're composing to, whether it's something that you've already, they've already shot, or you know it from the script, is just you've never seen it really on screen, or you definitely never heard a sound to go with it. So there's this freedom to be like, oh well, what does it sound like when a dude gets peed on? All right, I can figure that out. Like there's not a huge backlog of that. I'm not going to be repeating anyone else's work here. So there's a freedom, I'm sure, that we can play. Okay, we want it to be exciting and powerful and joyous and chaotic, and we can lean into all that because there isn't this template where we're sort of making the template in a way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it was, I was trying to stick. There are a few score cues where I go outside the instrumentation. I use electric guitar in one. I use the mellotron in another, for different reasons. But for the most part, I try to stick to the instrumentation of the period, but just really push it to a place where it wouldn't sound like the period, where it's like it could be in the period for a certain underground music scene, for a certain, like, wild party. The music could have been played, but isn't what we associate, isn't what was recorded. Damien told me an idea early on that was kind of an inspiring idea, which is that the music we think of as 20s music, because it was recorded, because it was like actually, immortalized, was really only a sliver of what was actually being played at the time. He did a lot of research. I can't say I did really much research. I just listened to, he boiled it down. He gave me
Yeah,
the
like,
cliff notes. He gave me
yeah,
the cliff
boss, tell
notes.
me what I need to know.
Yeah, exactly. So the cliff notes were that there was a lot of like oral history of parties and underground music scenes that were very interesting sounding, a lot cooler sounding than the Charlestons and all the things that we think of as 20s, because there was very few people were allowed to record. It was new technology. Not a lot of people had access to it. So there was actually a more vibrant, more interesting music scene going on than what was actually like committed to wax or whatever they recorded on then. So we just started imagining, like, what could those underground, bands and scenes and parties have sounded like, and what could some of the influence have been, what could some of the, so we just started kind of like extrapolating and imagining and fictionalizing based on little seeds of, things in the oral history, but also just I mean, we knew what the instruments were, and we knew what the vibe of these parties was. A lot of drugs, a lot of, wild stuff going on. So like, what could it have sounded like? And
Yeah.
it was a fun like way to approach it.
Well, that's what I think it does sound like, and why the score has so very specifically been cited by so many people who are taken by the movie, is that it does sound like you're at the coolest party you could possibly be at the time, and this is the sound of not exclusivity necessarily, but of like the cool people. And at the
Yeah.
time, the cool people put on tuxedos and went to parties. But if
Yeah.
you just moved forward, it would be like the cool party at college you didn't get invited to. It would be the cool party. It does sound like here's the cutting edge, as opposed,
Yeah.
like you were saying, so much of when you think of the 20s is decidedly not cutting edge. It's very,
Yeah.
very stiff upper lip almost. It's almost like English in a way.
Yeah, and we tried to lean in also to kind of the mixture of cultures and whatnot that was kind of part of the 20s vibe. Like, there was a real fascination with like the exotic, I think, of the 20s. You look at like movie theaters, movie palaces from the 20s, and it's like the Egyptian theater or the Oriental theater. You have a lot of like, there was a kind of a fascination with these far off places. So we had fun with, like bringing in some Middle Eastern scales, some African percussion, some Latin percussion, some just like playing around. It was kind of like a melting pot, like the culture at the time in some ways. So we kind of had fun making the music, in some ways a melting pot of different ideas. And in a lot of places it's done in like kind of an intentionally campy way. I have like vocals in some of these songs where we have these there's this one tune, King of the Circus, where it's like I actually laid down a lot of the vocals and we got other people to add to them, but it's this made up accent going like ho 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 ho, and I don't know what that accent is. I don't know what that intonation is. It feels like exotic, but I can't like I don't even. It's made up. It's like not from anywhere, but it's this like campy sort of indigenous exotic sound, and that kind of fits with the vibe of like some of the campiness we had, or the like exoticness that we had in other that you see in like other parts of 20s culture. So we had fun playing with that element too, and just making it like this really fun, eccentric, eclectic hodgepodge of styles and influences and all sorts of stuff.
Wait, it sounds like there's a guy with a cigar telling you in a studio, like, and you're in the jungles, but jungles it doesn't matter. It's the jungle. Like, because I think one of the things that sort of gets misinterpreted about the movie is like it's very clear-eyed about what was not great about the time, but so many of the people involved didn't have bad intentions. It was they didn't have the understanding of like, yeah, this could be wildly offensive to someone because like we don't know. Like, and there's an interesting hindsight to it. Like, I understand if the movie doesn't work for people. Like I wrote in my review, I'm like, it's not necessarily not even someone's cup of tea. It's like it's a line of cocaine and like a shot of whiskey. It's like very much a specific taste. But I think when you get on its wavelength, like you're saying, there's so much going on that is fun and lively, and just the movie you don't see every day. It's a sound you don't get to hear. It's such a unique beast that it really only comes, I think, when you have someone who's gotten the cachet, yourself included, to be like, what we've done has worked. Like we have these little gold statue things that are sitting in the house to like prove like you guys liked what we did. Like this is something that you used to let people do that we just for some reason we're not making anymore. Let's do it.
Yeah. Right. Damien, this is a ambitious movie to say the least. It's kind of like nothing else I've ever seen. I felt that way reading the script of like I've never read a script like this. This is this sprawling that has this many tones in it, that's comedy and tragedy and horror movie and all these things. It's such a rich movie. I've seen it many times. I've seen many pieces of it many times. Obviously, as you're making the movie, you see so much of it. But I just went to an AMC, saw it with a friend. I saw it at the premiere a few weeks ago. So I've actually just sat down and watched the whole movie a couple times recently. And I'm always seeing touches, things in the background of shots, parts of the design of it that I've never seen before. It is such a deep, rich movie. And I hope people appreciate that, because it's really something special that Damien has made.
I think the people who appreciate it like almost more so than normal, because it feels so like made for you in a way. Like it's not like it's this big movie, obviously promoted for everyone to go see as a big holiday release, but kind of feels like this almost secret. Like, oh, this is made for me. Like I should have to go see it at like a grimy theater, not at like a fancy theater. There's a feeling.
You have to be tuned into the right wavelength. And I think that's true. A lot of my favorite movies, they're not for everybody, but the people who love them because if you're tuned into the right wavelength and you get what the filmmaker's going for, it's something really, really special. And I think that's what we have here.
100%. And it's consistently been that way for me with you guys. So I'm obviously thrilled that it's out, and I can't wait for the next one. Who knows what the hell the next one could be?
I don't know what it is. I don't think Damien knows what it is.
No,
either.
I think at this point,
find out.
Yeah, no, there's sort of a welcome break, because there's, in a way, you guys have almost done everything. You have your high romance, you've done your comedy, you have your period. There's been a little bit of everything so far. So there is that like, what do I want to do next? And also there's just this voice, whether it's the music, whether it's the storytelling, that I think, and I don't know from Damien personally, but like it feels like doesn't want to be wasted necessarily. I'm like, well, I just want to go to work. Okay, well, is there a job next year? Let's find something. Like,
Right.
there's a sense of like, it's so awesome. I get to do this. I want to be excited to go to work, and like I'll wait
Mhm.
for it to be the time.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. Yeah, I we throw ourselves into our projects. We're both very obsessive and we're both very like
Can't tell.
when we commit to something, we commit hard. So you're right, it can't be anything. But like I said, I'm luckily the things don't originate with me. I have something, by the time I start, I at least have a script to look at. So Damien does that really hard work of like what are we doing next?
Yeah. What are 100 people going to spend 2 years on?
Or
All
three
right.
or
I've
4 years.
got an idea. Yeah. No, it's wild, but you should be very proud. There's, been some nominations for you already for this. There's more ahead coming ahead, so you should as always be very proud, and I don't know, I love it. So I'm always thrilled to be able to chat.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Joey.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.